Welcome back to the Design and Thrive podcast, where we dive into the stories behind innovative products and the brilliant minds building them. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce Rastin Rasoli, founder of Doro, an AI-powered mental health chatbot revolutionizing early intervention for anxiety, stress, and more. We're unpacking how AI is closing critical gaps in mental health care and what the future holds for personalized wellness. Stay tuned. This is a conversation you won't want to miss.
Welcome to Design and Thrive podcast. We have an amazing guest from Doro, or Rastin Rasoli. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Mike, for inviting me.
You're welcome. So let's break the ice. How do you come up with the name Doro for your business?
Great question.
What is Doro?
Yeah, of course. So first of all, Doro is a chatbot providing psychotherapeutic techniques to users. It's a fully AI-led chatbot, and it offers its support through 30-minute conversations. And between the sessions and between the conversations, it offers specific action items that you can try to change your current habits into more positive ones. And the goal of Doro is to prevent the escalation of early mental health symptoms that we experience, like chronic stress, chronic anxiety when you go through breakup or different challenges. Now, the great question that you asked, why the name is Doro? So we named Doro after Dorothea Dix. She was a famous nurse a long time ago, and she was one of the main individuals who tried to reduce the stigma around mental health disorders.
I know you're making a huge impact on mental health. And do you have any hacks related to coming up with the invention of Doro, the app?
Yeah, so the reason we started Doro was, first of all, because I'm neurodivergent. And the moment I realized I have autism, I tried to make sure that others won't go through the same challenges that I went. So since I was 18, I was part of different mental health organizations, startups, and gathered a lot of experience, had to support individuals who are going through some mental health challenges. And before Doro, I was the CTO of another startup called Colorful Zone. And in there, we were building this kind of application to help adolescents and teenagers to prevent anxiety and escalation of anxiety symptoms. And during that experience, I talked with a lot of teenagers and students, and I realized there's this huge gap in the market right now. So we have a lot of dozens, thousands of mental health applications that are very simple and not very personalized. So they, for example, offer general mindfulness or psychoeducational resources. And then suddenly there's a huge gap, and then we have medication or, for example, psychotherapy, which are very intensive care and definitely not accessible when you go through a breakup, right? You can't use medication when you just went through a breakup, or for example, sometimes the wait time for therapy is 3 months, or it could be very, very expensive. For example, $150 average sometimes. So it's not very accessible, and there's a huge gap in between these two kind of support systems that we have right now. And this gap leads to many people ignoring their symptoms. So they would go through a breakup, they move out to a new place, they lose someone, they fail an exam. Sometimes it's very simple, simpler than that. And they ignore their symptoms, they ignore their chronic anxiety, stress, until it gets worse and gets worse and gets worse until it turns into a serious mental health disorder or detrimental life consequences. So, for example, they lose their job, I don't know, or other similar events. So we knew that this is a gap and we have to solve it. And technically, that was the reason that when Gen AI came, it was about 1.5 years ago, I felt like, okay, I think we finally can address this problem, because finally we can come up with a product that is very, very personalized. So understands you, understands your background, cultural background, and based on that, tries to offer specific actionable steps for you to make sure that you won't fall into that spiral of negativity and challenges that mental health disorders can lead to. So that was the reason that we started working on Doro.
So why focus on early stage mental health support?
Yeah, so no mental health disorder happens overnight, right? So, for example, mainly depression and anxiety I'm talking about. And these are the most prevalent ones, right? So, depression and anxiety don't happen overnight. There's months or years before when the symptoms start getting worse and turn into a clinical condition. And during this period, unfortunately, because of the inaccessibility of the interventions right now, many individuals ignore it. Either it's because of the stigma, the cost, or other barriers. So the reason that I think actually AI can be used best at this stage is because it's very accessible. We can come up with very, very personalized interventions during this stage. And hopefully, our goal is to prevent the escalation of these symptoms, right? So let's use this period that everyone's ignoring right now, address the challenge as early as possible. And many of the techniques that we have right now in therapy and psychotherapy are really, really effective as early as possible when they're used, right? So when we like go through a breakup, as soon as we experience that, if we could receive many of these techniques, we could really prevent the escalation of these symptoms. So that's why I think this is the best time we actually can support someone. And also, this is the best time we can use AI because of its accessibility.
All right. Now, if you weren't building Doro, what would you be doing right now?
I think working on a startup, either in a startup or becoming a
Another
founder
startup,
anyway.
yeah.
Yes, another startup. So, and it would definitely be in the mental health space again. I love this space, even though it's very, very challenging. It's very, very subjective. So, like for example, in most of the other industries, you have very, very clear objectives. Even when it's health, so you have a very clear objective, like what you should do. Or for example, if it's non-health, well, that's even easier. So, for example, you want to help a business to reduce its costs. You want to help another organization or help your customers to achieve certain things. And mental health is much more subjective. It's very, very, very difficult to say, for example, is this app helping like this specific user? Because at the end of the day, it's the user's subjective feeling to say, yeah, I use this application and now I feel better. So it's very, very difficult to make it objective and say, okay, well, what feature should be added? How can we really help individuals who are experiencing anxiety and depression? But still, I love it because it has such an impact on the person's life and you can directly see it. So I really, really enjoy working in this industry, but it's very challenging.
Yeah. It's great to see that you're an advocate for mental health and you're
Thank
integrating
you.
AI. What AI trends are shaping mental health right now?
So right now, it's a huge boom of like using AI and generative AI mainly and LLMs in the mental health industry, and the main trends are companion and psychotherapy. So most of them are trying to offer AI-based psychotherapy, like psychotherapeutic chatbots. We've seen like many startups being founded in this space right now and actually receiving a lot of funds. And I think that's the main trend right now.
Okay, perfect. And is there any new technology that you're excited about or cautious about in mental health space with AI?
Yeah, well, Gen AI, like it's like it's changing everywhere. Like it's not just in mental health, right? It's changing the whole game. Most of the software engineers are very, very worried about their job titles because it's really becoming smarter and smarter every day. So it sounds really scary sometimes for software engineering and developers. But yeah, it's very exciting time because I think there's many challenges that could be addressed and fixed. Like as I said, like in mental health, I think the prevention aspect is the best place to use generative AI because there's less regulations, less concerns, less liabilities, while also we can maximize effectiveness. Like this is the time that actually most of the therapeutic techniques can really, really help individuals. And I don't think the like therapy AI trend is good. Maybe we can use it not to reflect the point that it's going to be like a therapist, but just because I don't know, we don't have any other words for it. It's just it's an AI based mental health intervention. But I'm not sure still using the word therapy is the best tool because I think the whole point of AI is accessibility, and we can build something completely different than therapy and offer much more help, much more guidance, much more like ongoing support to the user. And I'm not sure necessarily this can be called therapy, but as I said, like this is the main part, the core problem that could be fixed is this preventative aspect, this gap between these very simple, lightweight applications that are out there right now. For example, mindfulness apps, high building applications that are great, but not very personalized at all, and not very helpful when you're going through something really, really challenging. And on the other hand, the intensive therapy, which is not very accessible. So this gap is a prevention aspect of it that I think AI can really, really address it.
And speaking about that gap, how do you decide what features to build out next?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it also goes back to the initial point that I made that mental health market is very, very subjective. And really saying, okay, this feature is better is a very, very difficult sentence to say because, like, in what sense is it better? For what kind of user is it better? The great thing about AI is that, like, it can fully personalize the experience so that you can say, okay, like this feature is better because it leads to a higher engagement. And for most of the users of the app who are going through some anxiety and stress, because it's fully personalized. For every person, technically, it looks like a different feature, right? So like 3 years ago, before Gen AI, when you wanted to build a habit building application, you could have like listed a 60 different types of habits that people can start with. And based on like their interactions, or for example, some questions that we answer, you can like offer different things from this list, right? But right now, Gen AI, there is no list or anything. You can, for every person, you can offer specific habits for their life. The main concern, on the other hand, is how can I make sure that this thing that is offering, like for example, this habit, is really helpful for the user. Maybe it's a hallucination. Maybe there's some concerns. Maybe it's not very accurate. These are the other questions that actually should be addressed when you build a product and using Gen AI, because it's not very deterministic anymore. And it's like stochastic. It could provide any answer, so you have to make sure that it's accurate. But on the other hand, it's fully personalized. So for my experience, suddenly, like I say, yeah, I went through this, and this, and based on that, it says, okay, let's start doing this. I know you, I know who you are, so let's do that. So going back to your initial question, this is a very difficult thing to like say what feature is good and what feature is not good. But like we try to test it with a small group of users first and see if they like it, if they don't like it, and how we can improve it.
Okay. And speaking about improvement based on customer feedback, what kind of feedback are you hearing from your users or the clinics?
Yeah, well, wonderful. Great. So first of all, like for the past 6 months, we were doing pilots and different like trials, mainly at the University of Waterloo. So I'm a UW student, and we started at the UW, and the campus wellness of University of Waterloo was very open to smart, safe solutions. So they really supported us, and I appreciate them. And we immediately started with many UW students, like 3,000 students during the past 6 months, tried the application. And we asked some of them to fill out different questionnaires so that we measure the effectiveness of the application. The results were really promising. So for the 3% reduction in stress, anxiety, and overwhelm on average, and for the 2% increase in positive emotions like hopefulness or energy. And so after this, we realized, okay, now it's time to go public. And we recently launched our mobile application, and we're starting our marketing campaigns to go beyond Waterloo and help many individuals over the world.
Perfect. Now, Rastin, what does success look like for you right now?
To receive the feedback from users that really they were help me to, for example, prevent another depression relapse, or they were help me to come up out of my anxiety spiral. So these are the great things, to see the direct impact of Doro on people's lives, to see that actually, yes, we are getting closer and closer to our vision that no one has to experience mental health barriers and go through the challenges that mental health disorders can bring in. So I think success for me is getting closer and closer to our vision.
Now, for Doro, where do you see it going in the next 1 to 5 years?
Well, in 5 years, I want Dora to be in the pocket of every person, and also especially across different ages, right? Teenagers, children, these are very critical ages, and these are the actually ages that mental health disorders start manifesting, and could be one of the indicators whether you're going to have a serious depression in 10 years, like when you're 20 or 30 later in your life. So I'd love Doro to be this kind of companion for every person, to make sure that they won't fall into this spiral of mental health challenges, and to make sure that mental health disorders are prevented as soon as the early symptoms are experienced.
What's the biggest challenge you have going on today?
So we're doing something very challenging. So there's many challenges that we're facing, but the biggest one is to make sure that we're making a product that's effective and that a product that's safe. Because like first of all, we have to make sure that the AI that we're making is offering like accurate knowledge, is offering accurate guidance, and it's reliable. On the other hand, the safety aspect is to make sure that, well, maybe 99% of the cases, Dory is offering the best kind of support, but in that 1%, how bad is it, right? So are we making sure that in those very rare cases that maybe hallucinations happen, are we preventing these situations? Are we making sure that the user receives the support they need after like these challenges that may have when these challenges just happen? So that's, I think, the second aspect. So first one is effectiveness, and the second one is to make sure that we're building something that's reliable and safe.
Perfect. Now, Rastin, what's next for Doro?
So as I mentioned earlier, we're excited that we're launching our mobile application. Right now, Doro is accessible on iOS, Android, and our web application. So across all of these three platforms, Doro is available. And we're launching our marketing campaigns on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. So if you heard about us, please follow us, try the application, and I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Perfect. And lastly, I wanted to give you that last moment for your plug, but I guess you got it there. Let's try that one more time. Where can listeners find out more about Doro?
Sure. So you can check our website. It's RAZROZE, so razros.ca or duro.razros.ca. Or you can also find our application on App Store and Google Play. You can just search Duro Companion.
Awesome. Well, that brings it close to Design to Thrive. Thank you, Rastin, for coming on the show. We'll see you again.
Of course, thank you so much for inviting me. Have a great day.